Welcome back, guys. Welcome to our podcast. Are you ready to turn 2025 into the year you've always dreamed of? Success isn't luck, it's built on habits. In this video, we reveal 6 powerful habits that can transform your life and set you on the path to greatness. Let's make 2025 your breakthrough year.
I'm excited to dive into these habits with you. Building a better year does indeed start with building better habits.
Okay, so to kick off this deep dive into habit building, we're turning to a source from Ali Abdal. You might know him. He's a doctor-turned-entrepreneur who creates a ton of content about productivity and personal growth.
His insights are really valuable,
Hmm,
especially for those who want to achieve their goals without sacrificing their well-being.
absolutely. And that's why we're focusing on his YouTube video titled 6 Habits to Make 2025 Your Best Year. He emphasizes finding fulfillment in the process, not just checking things off a to-do list.
That resonates with me. It's about creating a life that's both successful and enjoyable.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And he summarizes that balance with his 5 F's: fun, fulfillment, flexibility, freedom, and finance. So let's jump into the first habit, which is a bit of a shift in perspective when it comes to goal setting.
I'm all ears.
Ali suggests ditching those traditional annual goals. Instead, he encourages focusing on what he calls quarterly quests.
I like that framing.
Yeah.
It sounds more adventurous and less daunting than just goals.
Right, and there's a psychological reason for this approach. Annual goals can feel overwhelming, like this massive year-long climb. But breaking the year down into 90-day chunks makes things feel more manageable. You can actually visualize those 12 weeks on a piece of paper.
It's like focusing on the next step instead of staring at the summit of the mountain.
Exactly. And Ali even uses a great analogy. He says it's like seeing the entire path lie out in front of you instead of just this vague, distant peak.
By breaking down larger projects into these bite-sized 90-day sprints, you create a sense of momentum. You're constantly making progress, celebrating small wins, and that fuels your motivation to keep going.
He even used this approach when writing his book. He tackled it in 90-day chunks, which helped him stay focused and make consistent progress.
That's a great example of how this can work in a real-world scenario. And it's encouraging to know that even someone as productive as Ollie breaks his goals down into smaller steps.
Now, what's really cool is that Ali actually hosts free alignment workshops at the beginning of each quarter to help people set their quarterly quests. It's a fantastic resource for those who want to dive deeper into this approach.
That's a testament to his commitment to helping others achieve their goals. It's not just about sharing information, it's about providing practical support.
Okay, so you've got your quarterly quests set,
Mm.
but how do you stay on track throughout the year and make sure those quests don't just fade into the background of everyday life?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's one thing to set goals, but another to actually achieve them.
Well, Ollie's second habit addresses exactly that. He calls it the weekly reset.
This sounds familiar. Is this similar to the concept in David Allen's Getting Things Done methodology?
You got it. It's a classic productivity technique that emphasizes the importance of regular reflection and planning. And the beauty of it is that it's so simple. You just spend about 20 minutes each week reviewing the past week, what went well, what didn't, and then setting your priorities for the week ahead.
It's like having a mini strategy session with yourself each week. You take a step back, assess the situation, and adjust your course as needed.
Exactly. And a crucial part of this process is connecting those weekly priorities back to your larger quarterly quests. It's about making sure your daily actions are consistently moving you towards those bigger goals.
That's so important. It's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day whirlwind and lose sight of the big picture, but this weekly check-in helps you stay aligned with your overall vision.
And here's another key element that Ali emphasizes: celebrating your wins from the past week. It's a great way to boost motivation and remind yourself that you're making progress, even if it doesn't feel huge in the moment.
I love that acknowledging those small victories is so important for maintaining momentum and keeping your spirits high. It makes the journey feel more rewarding.
Oh, and there's this funny anecdote in the video. Ollie's wife had to motivate him to actually film the video, which is a funny little glimpse into the real life behind the productivity guru.
Those little human moments make it feel more relatable, right? It's reassuring to know that even productivity experts have their off days and need a little nudge sometimes.
Now, even with your weekly priority set, how do you stay focused on those priorities each day, especially with all the distractions and demands that modern life throws at us?
That's a real challenge. It's so easy to get sidetracked and end up feeling like you're running in circles.
I agree. And that's where Ali's third habit comes in, which he calls the morning manifesto.
Okay, that sounds intriguing. Tell me more about this manifesto.
It's essentially a 2-minute journaling prompt that you do at the start of each day. It's about taking a few minutes to center yourself and remind yourself what truly matters. It's a way to prime your mind for a productive day.
I can see how that would be helpful. Instead of just reacting to whatever pops up, you start the day with intention.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And the prompt itself is super simple. There are just two key questions.
I'm curious, what are those questions?
The first question is, what were my top 3 priorities for the week and how are they going? It's a daily check-in to see if you're on track with what you set out to do during your weekly reset.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's a way to keep those priorities top of mind and make sure your daily actions are aligned with your bigger goals.
Right. And the second question is my favorite. It's, what is today's adventure going to be?
I love that framing.
Hmm.
It turns a potentially mundane task into something exciting.
Exactly. Instead of seeing it as just another item to check off your to-do list, you're framing it as an adventure.
It's subtle, but that shift in language can have a real impact on your mindset. It's about approaching your work with a sense of purpose and enthusiasm, which makes the whole process more enjoyable.
Totally. And of course, Ali being Ali, there's another funny moment where his wife interrupts him mid-video with a hello.
Oh, I love those little glimpses into his real life. It's a reminder that even productivity experts have families and unexpected interruptions.
Speaking of interruptions, I think this is a good place to pause and pick up with the remaining habits in the next part of our deep dive.
Sounds good to me. I'm already eager to hear about the next 3 habits. Okay, so we're back. And we've talked about like the first 3 habits from Ali Abdal.
All right, so we've got our quarterly quests, our weekly reset, and our morning manifesto all setting us up for a really great year.
Yeah, I love those. But those are all about the planning and the intention setting. But what about actually like putting in the work?
Right. It's one thing to make a plan, but another to actually execute on it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what this next habit's all about.
Okay, so what's number 4?
This one's called the focus log.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually came from Ali struggling to find time to write his book.
I feel that struggle.
Like he had the time blocked out,
Yeah.
but just would get distracted, procrastinate, and not really make the progress he wanted.
Oh, yeah. So easy to get sidetracked these days.
Right, so his solution was actually super simple. He started just like tracking the minutes he actually spent working on the book in a spreadsheet.
Wait, so just like logging the time made a difference?
Yeah, it sounds so basic, but it's really powerful.
I think it's the awareness, right? Like once you start tracking something, you become so much more conscious of it.
Exactly. He talked about how it gave him like profound insights into his own productivity.
Interesting. So you see how much you're actually doing or not doing.
Yeah, and then once you see that data, it's harder to ignore. You
Yeah.
know, it pushes you to improve.
It's like a feedback loop. Track, celebrate wins, and adjust.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you can use a focus log for anything, not just writing. Like if you want to exercise more, track those workout minutes. Trying to learn a language, track your study time.
I love that I'm all about tracking.
Me too. And if you guys want to get like really in depth with focus logs, Ollie has a bunch of resources on his website that we'll link in the show notes.
Okay, awesome. So you've got goals, planning, intention, and focus. What's next?
Okay, so this next one shifts gears a little bit. It's all about relationships and combating loneliness.
Ooh, that's so important because you can get so caught up in achieving your goals that you forget about those connections.
Exactly. And sometimes, even with all the technology we have, people can still feel really isolated.
So true. So how do we tackle that?
Ollie calls this one standing order social events.
Okay, I like that already. It sounds official.
Yeah, so it's about being proactive and scheduling those social events into your calendar.
Like any other important appointment, right?
Right. So it's about not letting those connections slip through the cracks.
So instead of always having to coordinate and plan, you've got those built-in opportunities to connect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it could be anything, like Sunday brunch with friends, a board game night, a dinner party.
Yeah, he mentioned how important that was when he lived in London. Having those recurring social things really helped him stay connected.
And he even uses it in his own relationship. He and his wife scheduled 2 date nights a week.
Oh, that's so cute. I love that. It's about making it a priority.
And it doesn't have to be anything fancy. Even a coffee date or a walk in the park makes a difference.
Yeah, as long as it's consistent. Right.
Right. And Ollie talked about how this connects back to research on loneliness and relationships. Like having those regular social rituals can really boost your well-being.
Love that.
Yeah.
So we're taking care of our social needs. Now, what about finding time for those passions and side projects?
Right. Because everyone's busy these days.
Yeah.
Work-life commitments. How do you fit it all in?
The eternal struggle. So what's Ollie's secret weapon?
He calls it multimodality multitasking.
Multimodality multitasking. Isn't multitasking supposed to be bad?
Well, he's very specific about differentiating between ineffective multitasking, like trying to do too many things at once.
Yeah, like writing an email and having a conversation at the same time.
Right. But this is about combining different modalities in a way that actually boosts your productivity.
So it's more about being strategic.
Exactly. Like think about listening to an audiobook or podcast while you're doing chores or commuting.
Oh, yeah, I do that all the time.
Right. You're engaging your mind and getting stuff done at the same time.
It's like maximizing those little pockets of time.
And Ollie actually created an app for this called VoicePal. It's like voice to text, so you can capture ideas on the go.
Oh, that's cool. So he can just dictate notes while he's walking or whatever.
Exactly. And even if you don't use that specific app, the principle is what matters. Find ways to combine activities that work together.
I love these habits.
Yeah.
So many practical tips.
Right. We've covered goals, planning daily intention-focused relationships, and now multitasking.
We're hitting all the bases. I think we're ready to wrap things up with some final thoughts.
Sounds good. Let's bring it all together. Okay, so we've made it to the end of our deep dive into Ali Abdaal's 6 habits for a breakthrough year.
Yeah, it's been a jam-packed episode with so many great ideas.
So let's do a quick recap just to make sure it's all sunk in.
Okay, sounds good.
So first up, we had those quarterly quests, breaking the year down into those 90-day chunks.
Right, much more manageable than those daunting year-long goals.
Then there was the weekly reset, that 20-minute check-in with yourself to review and prioritize.
Love that, keeping us on track and making sure we're actually moving towards those bigger goals.
Then to start each day with intention, we had the morning manifesto with those 2 key questions.
Oh, yeah. Those were so good. What are my top priorities? And what's today's adventure?
Such a simple but powerful way to frame your day.
And then to really hone in on those priorities, we had the focus log.
Just tracking that time can make such a difference.
It's all about that awareness, right? Seeing where your time is actually going.
And then to make sure we're not neglecting our social lives, we had those standing order social events.
Ah, yes. Making sure those connections are a priority.
Whether it's a coffee date, a game night, a dinner party, whatever works for you.
As long as it's consistent, it's all about building those rituals.
And finally, we had multimodality, multitasking, finding ways to combine activities and maximize our time.
Like listening to a podcast while you're doing chores or walking?
Yeah, making the most of those little pockets of time.
So much good stuff in there.
Yeah, so as you head into this new year, we really challenge you to pick one of these habits that resonates with you.
You don't have to do them all. Just choose one that feels like it can make a difference.
Experiment with it for a week, a month, even just a day. See how it feels.
Notice the impact it has on your productivity, your mindset, your well-being.
Building a better year is a process. It's about continuous improvement and finding what works for you.
Absolutely. And we believe you have the power to make 2025 your best year yet.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Ali Abdaal's 6 habits.
We hope you found it insightful and are ready to put some of these tips into action.
If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, and share it with your friends.
And don't forget to check out our YouTube channel for more productivity tips and personal growth wisdom.
Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep striving for your best self.